In the never-ending sludge of Marvel pumping out awful project after awful project over the past couple of years in an attempt to survive, I sometimes forget that the DCEU even exists. I'm actually baffled sometimes that the DCEU is even still going. They only pump out one movie every 2 years or so, and they're always shit. But here we are in 2023, and instead of releasing a movie of any relevance in any attempt to bring the DCEU back into people's minds, they decide to make a solo movie about probably their most uninteresting hero in the Justice League, The Flash. I really don't even know where to begin with this film. If there's anything I even liked about this movie, I will say that the score was pretty solid, but that's about where my praise ends. Everything else was just bad altogether or just extremely forgettable. Now what The Flash does have going for it is it's a pretty entertaining turn off your brain type of film, but fails to be anything more than just that. So people might be asking, so if it's at least a semi-entertaining watch, then how can it be so terrible? Well, that answer lies in the fact that the worst part about the film is our title character. The Flash, or at least this version of the Flash, in my opinion, is not strong enough of a character to warrant a movie made solely about him. It actually reminds me a lot of Black Widow. Black Widow is a very good character in a supporting role, but as soon as she eventually got a solo movie, it just didn't really work for me. But at least Black Widow is a good character and someone we can root for. This version of Barry, however, is so shit. The whole time, I just felt like they were trying to cram down my throat the fact that this guy is a fucking loser. No, I don't think that every superhero necessarily has to be some type of Giga Chad like Superman, for example. But I think that they should at least feel heroic. Barry doesn't feel like a superhero. He just feels like a guy with the ability to run super fast. And sure, he may be able to pass off in a movie like Justice League, where he's obviously not the focus of the film. But in a solo movie like this, the main character has to be heroic, well-written, and an engaging protagonist to help lead the film. And Barry is just absolutely not that, and the film suffers for it. Another big problem with this film is it's pretty unfocused and tries to juggle too many things. There's a lot of characters, cameos, and plot points that they introduce, and I just don't think that it was interwoven very well. In terms of cameos, they introduced this super chick girl, who I actually don't think was that bad. It is a little interesting considering that this is an alternate universe, but they don't really give her much of substance to do. Combine that with the fact that all of her CGI is absolutely terrible, and overall, I think that her character just kind of fell flat. General Zod is also in this movie, but they don't attempt to make him interesting in any sort of way. They don't flesh him out at all, and all he does is just show up and start killing people. I don't know, is he supposed to be the main villain of the movie? Because if he is, this is a fucking piss-poor effort at making a villain. But the biggest cameo in this film is certainly Michael Keaton's Batman. Going into this film, I actually thought his cameo was going to be the stupidest and just ultra fan service garbage. But to my surprise, he was actually the best character in the movie. It's pretty obvious that they didn't really know what to do with him though. He does do important stuff, but he's kind of just doing everything the Flash is doing with him. He doesn't really stand out in any way narratively, and you could have probably replaced him with anybody and the overall story wouldn't have changed that much. In terms of the actual plot, I think that the story that they were telling was way too grand for a movie of this scale. So DC decided to give it their best go on the whole multiverse storyline, but it's a story trope that's been so overused by Marvel lately that it just makes DC feel completely unoriginal. I don't think that DC understands that if they ever want to get out of Marvel's shadow, they have to stop trying to be like Marvel so much. The two DC movies that have been released recently that haven't been a part of the DCEU, Joker and The Batman, were huge successes. They were both very serious, well-written, had a much darker tone than Marvel, and weren't just a goofy clown show like modern Marvel and the DCEU has become. So I don't know why DC can't comprehend the massive successes of those movies and just do more of that. I think that DC taking its movies more seriously compared to modern Marvel, where all of its movies and characters have just become a circus act, would feel super refreshing to audiences. And if the numbers are anything to go off of, people want to see more of this style. The Batman made $771 million at the box office, more than tripling its budget, and Joker, to my knowledge, was actually the highest grossing R-rated film of all time. In conclusion, The Flash is just another painfully mediocre film coming off the modern superhero movie conveyor belt. With a box office bomb imminent, this could very well be one of the last, if not the last, straws for the DCEU. And honestly, at this point, I think that DC should heavily consider just throwing in the towel on their expanded universe. Well, that's going to do it for this video, guys. If you like this video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you'll be notified when I post my next video. But anyways, that's all I got for today, guys. I'll see you next time.